A dark day for press freedom. VOA faces mass layoffs. The Trump administration sent shockwaves through the media landscape on March 17, 2025, with the announcement of mass layoffs at the Voice of America, or VOA. Effective March 31, 2025, the internationally renowned broadcaster will witness a drastic reduction in its workforce. This decision comes on the heels of an executive order effectively dissolving the U.S. Agency for Global Media, VOA's parent organization. The White House has defended the move, citing concerns over the spread of radical propaganda. However, this justification has been met with skepticism and outright condemnation from media freedom groups worldwide. The layoffs have been widely perceived as a politically motivated attack on journalistic independence. Critics argue that the Trump administration is attempting to silence dissenting voices and control the narrative on the global stage. The decision has drawn comparisons to authoritarian regimes that routinely suppress media freedom. This move has raised concerns about the future of a free and independent press, both within the United States and abroad. Adding to the growing unease, contractors associated with VOA were abruptly notified of their termination on March 16th. They were barred from accessing agency premises, further fueling suspicions of an orchestrated attempt to stifle dissent. The speed and secrecy surrounding these layoffs have only deepened the sense of alarm among press freedom advocates. This latest development has cast a long shadow over the future of VOA and its mission to provide unbiased news and information to a global audience. The layoffs at VOA represent a significant escalation in the Trump administration's ongoing battle with the media. This move is not an isolated incident but rather part of a broader pattern of actions aimed at undermining press freedom. The White House's attempts to discredit and delegitimize critical reporting have raised concerns about the erosion of democratic norms. As the situation unfolds, the world watches with bated breath, acutely aware that the stakes couldn't be higher. Echoes of censorship. A troubling pattern emerges. The mass layoffs at VOA are not an isolated incident. They are part of a larger and deeply troubling pattern of media restrictions imposed by the Trump administration. These actions have raised serious concerns about the administration's commitment to freedom of the press, a cornerstone of American democracy. The silencing of critical voices within VOA is just the latest example of this disturbing trend. Just last month, the Trump administration took the unprecedented step of barring the Associated Press from covering White House events. This move was widely condemned as a blatant attempt to control the flow of information and punish a news organization for its critical reporting. The decision to target the Associated Press, a respected news agency with a long and storied history, sent shockwaves through the media world. Furthermore, the White House announced its intention to control media pool participation, further tightening its grip on information access. This decision gives the administration the power to handpick which journalists and news organizations are given access to cover presidential events, effectively silencing those deemed unfavorable. This move has been met with fierce opposition from media organizations across the political spectrum. The Trump administration's actions against VOA are also facing legal challenges, further highlighting the contentious nature of these decisions. In 2020, a federal judge ruled that Michael Pack, the Trump-appointed CEO of USAGM, acted unconstitutionally by investigating VOA journalists for alleged bias. This ruling underscores the legal and ethical complexities surrounding the administration's attempts to influence media coverage. NATO's top diplomat navigates a turbulent world stage. Amidst the escalating tensions with Russia and the unfolding crisis in Ukraine, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte arrived in Washington, D.C. on March 13, 2025, for a high-stakes visit. The two-day trip, aimed at reinforcing transatlantic ties and coordinating a unified response to the growing global challenges, saw Rutte engaged in crucial meetings with top U.S. officials. The visit underscored the urgency of the situation and the need for a coordinated response from the Western alliance. Rutte's itinerary included a meeting with President Trump, where the two leaders discussed a range of pressing issues. The ongoing war in Ukraine in particular dominated the agenda, highlighting the gravity of the situation. The meeting provided an opportunity for both leaders to reiterate their commitment to NATO's collective defense principles and emphasize the importance of transatlantic unity in the face of Russian aggression. Beyond the immediate crisis in Ukraine, The discussions also encompassed broader strategic challenges, including the need for increased defense spending among NATO members. The US has long called for its European allies to shoulder a larger share of the financial burden within the alliance. The meeting provided a platform to reiterate this stance and emphasize the importance of equitable burden sharing for NATO's long-term viability. The NATO Secretary General's visit to Washington served as a timely reminder of the complex geopolitical landscape and the importance of multilateral diplomacy. As the Ukraine crisis continues to unfold, the need for a unified and resolute response from the transatlantic alliance remains paramount. The world watches with bated breath as the situation continues to develop. Ukraine on the brink, ceasefire hopes hang by a thread. The war in Ukraine continues to rage on, casting a long shadow over global peace and security. Diplomatic efforts to broker a ceasefire between Ukraine and Russia have intensified, with the international community desperately seeking a way to end the bloodshed. However, despite these efforts, the situation on the ground remains volatile, with both sides accusing each other of violating ceasefire agreements. The humanitarian cost of the conflict continues to rise, with millions of Ukrainians displaced and in desperate need of aid. The G7 foreign ministers have issued a stern warning to Russia, urging the Kremlin to accept a ceasefire or face further crippling sanctions. The international community has largely condemned Russia's actions in Ukraine, with many countries imposing economic sanctions and providing military aid to Ukraine. However, despite these measures, Russia has shown no signs of backing down. Adding to the complexity of the situation, Russian President Vladimir Putin has expressed conditional support for a ceasefire. However, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has interpreted Putin's statement as a potential rejection of the US proposed 30-day ceasefire, further dimming hopes for a swift resolution. The conflicting interpretations highlight the deep mistrust between the two sides and the challenges of finding common ground. Russia, emboldened by what it perceives as tacit support from the Trump administration, has indicated its intention to retain control of the Ukrainian territories it currently occupies as part of any peace deal. This stance has further complicated the already delicate negotiations and raised concerns about the potential for a protracted conflict.